Yes, my people. Only one United. Natalie here. I'm here with Rich. Rich, thank you for coming on. Back again.
No worries. First day back at work and straight back on with you.
Yep. This is what we like to see. This is what we like to see. And Rich is someone, if you don't know him, and I'll let him explain himself, but it's someone that I've spoken to since pretty much day one, isn't it, Rich, of watching women's football? And
Yeah.
I think days like this, I think we never thought would happen. I think the transfer window hasn't even opened yet, and people are already talking about deals that are done. And I mean, did you ever think that it would come to this in women's football, where we're at? Like we're saying England's done, we're saying Palova's done. You see people saying Dabinia, here she going here or there, and these are the kind of things that I love to see. I've wanted to see from the start, and now it's happening. So, what do you think in terms of that?
Yeah, I still think it's limited in a way to the sort of the bigger clubs and the bigger players, which is probably not a shock given that's sort of you know that's always going to have a bigger focus in the media in any sport. So it doesn't surprise me that you're seeing rumours about Arsenal or Chelsea or United or City or whoever, and obviously England internationals like Beth England that have big profiles. I think from fans, like you say, there's a bit of a cultural shift, and there has been for some time, and I think that shift will carry on for a while in terms of. Still think there's some fans that don't really want transfer rumours and things like that. Or not don't want, but aren't bothered. Like aren't gonna massively go looking for them. And then there's people like you that think about it 24/7. Um, yeah, like it's progressing. I think there's still a bit of a way to go until you're talking about and you've got mainstream media talking about who Sheffield United are signing, for example, or Championship clubs, etc., or below that. It will probably happen over time, but yeah, it's supply and demand, isn't it? And that's a term I always use when I do these podcasts with anything. Off the back of Euros and things like that. The game has grown, and these players and these clubs are more well known about. So newspapers will write about it if people are reading it, and if they're commissioning these articles now, like we saw with Catherine yesterday or the day before, I can't even remember because days mold into one at this time of year. Then yeah, it means people are reading it, so that there's demand there, which means you're getting the supply.
Yeah, definitely. We need more supply, and I think we're hearing things. I mean, and getting fees announced. That's something that Lansell, and I know that, like you were just saying there, historic fans. I mean, I chatted to you, and people were saying to me like they don't really like that, and I think, how can you not like it? For me, it's strange not to want to hear what clubs are doing or who you're going to sign, and I just think that, like you say, the more people demand it, the more you'll see it. But I do think what Alex saying, 99 are just selling rumors, advertising, and I do think no one will fully know things, but you'll know bits because I mean I put out something the other day. I said Grace Clinton is a done deal that she's going on a loan, but I'm guessing slash reading between a few lines it could be Brighton, but I don't know for sure. But then, like you say, that's the rumor, and that's the fun of it, Alex. And I think people now, we've got the rumors. People want names. They don't just want to hear this may happen. They want to hear X is going to Y, and this is. They don't just want to hear Man United are signing a midfielder. They want to know who's the name, where did she play for. I mean, look at this. Someone's saying Jordan Nobbs and Davinia to Man United. Spanish press are saying, guys, that's a name, and we're waiting to find out where she's going. And I've heard, United are interested, but I know that Arsenal, Barcelona, Leon, and like you're saying, big clubs, big names, and it's happening, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah, it is, and I say this to you a lot now. Obviously, I have to take a slightly more boring approach as a journalist and a writer than a fan. It's and because of the supply and demand, and obviously, a few years ago, you probably didn't have to work that hard to find things out. Whereas now, there's a lot more involved. There's more money. The financial side of it's and it's just more at stake, and there's more attention on what's going on. So you've got to be really careful because in and not in women's football, but in football in general, and any sport that involves transfers between teams. Even NFL, for example, obviously in America, which is massive. Everyone's got an agenda. Everyone's going to tell you what suits them. Agents are going to put names out there and link their players with clubs because it suits them. Because whether it's true or not, it gets their names out there and it gets people talking about them. And that makes other clubs then stand up and think, oh, this player's been linked with this club, like she must be decent, kind of thing. Shall we have a look? And it's a big knock-on effect. So, I'm not saying agents just lie. Like a lot of agents tell you the truth because they've got reason to tell you the truth. But everyone says what they want people to hear, and it's about getting to the bottom of it and getting to the truth, which is a minefield sometimes, which is why the stories, like the breaking stories, are still quite rare, like what Catherine wrote about Beth, because you've really got to do a lot of work to get to that point, or you've just got very lucky and you've got a really good contact that is particularly close to that specific deal. So I can imagine it's fun for fans, and I've been there, growing up as a Man United fan, obviously. But I mean, that's a great example because how many players do Man United men get linked to every transfer window? You get linked to about 800 players, and you probably sign 2 or 3. Do you know what I mean? So 99% of it is hearsay, it's rubbish, it's speculation that's never going to happen. And yeah, I sort of learned to kind of just come away from it because I think, well, once they sign someone, they'll announce it, and that's that. And like, because I was like you, Nat, I probably got too caught up in it when I was younger and with the men, and like you get disappointed when you don't sign someone, or you get angry when you sign someone you don't want. And I just thought, no, I'm not gonna waste my time doing that. So, yeah, I get it.
For me, it's still fun, Rich, and I know you're coming out from a club
Everything's fun to you.
perspective
That's
now.
fine. Everything's fun to you now. I completely respect that.
For me, it definitely is still fun though, because it's, I suppose cutting through what's truth, what's lie, what's who they're actually interested in. I mean, some of the names that, on our Twitter account we put out, I can't say a name, Jace Riviere, this is where Man United should be aiming. And I know I've seen few people upset that we've not got Beth England, but for me, I think she would have been a good signing for United. But for me, I see it as a positive in that, are we now looking at a different caliber? And I mean, a few people have mentioned Dabinia in there, and that's something that I heard from one source was a done deal to United. She rejected Arsenal, but I know that you've heard differently. I know that Graham heard differently about Dabinia, and it's one of them where you don't fully know, because I know that in the summer everyone said Maya was going to City and she turned up at United, and it's I suppose when you know a few days before who you're getting, it's one of them. But then, like I said to Graham, who was on the last video, go and check that one out. It's a good video. I ended up getting a load of stick because I said, and I knew it was a done deal, Rachel Williams, and people didn't want to believe it. I mean, obviously, when I heard it, I didn't want to believe it, but it's one of those, isn't it? Obviously, people thought that we were getting that player from Reading, and he came out and totally shut it down. And I know that, United probably weren't impressed that their name was getting linked when there wasn't really much interest, but it is what it is. And I mean, what do you think? I mean, Stephen here saying the Glazers actually give a go ahead for the women's team, not just bring loans in. I mean, do you think there's going to be, we know what happened with Cody Gakpo, we couldn't sign anything. There's talk of men only getting loans. Do you think that it's going to have an impact, this sale? Of do you think we're going to spend money, Man United?
It depends on. Probably depends firstly the extent of how far the sale is along. I mean, you don't know, obviously, like, because they keep these things very quiet. It's the same at Sheffield United at the minute, where there's rumours of someone's buying the club, and even people within the club don't know what's going on because it's all for legal reasons, and obviously the amount of financial stuff that's involved, it's kept very quiet. So, and you're talking with Man United, you're talking times 100 compared to a club like Sheffield United, where you're talking billions and billions of pounds probably being turned over. So I think if it gets really far on, then you start looking at probably not as much money going out and assets being frozen. But it's very different between men and the women. Like you mentioned Gakpo there, and £37 million or whatever it was. If you're, sanctioning a sale of a club, yeah, you're probably not gonna put £37 million of your own money out there when you're about to sell up. But with the women, I mean, you're talking, what, 100,000 here or something like that for a signing. So I don't know. It's speculative at the minute in terms because takeovers are very hush hush, and you never really know the details of what's going on behind the scenes. But I'd be surprised if it had a big impact. I wouldn't be surprised if it had an impact on the men because you're talking about much bigger fees and much bigger outlays, not just in terms of transfer fees, but 250,000 pound a week in wages and things like that. The £200,000 with the women, you're probably talking about all in between a transfer fee and the wages. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'd be surprised if it had a big effect on the women, but it might depend on how far. If it was really close and suddenly they're freezing everything, then maybe it would. But I think right now, like, I wouldn't worry speculating about it because, like you said, the fees that are involved with the women's team are a lot, 100 times smaller than the men.
I mean, I know me and Rich had a plan for this, but I can see people coming through, asking questions. Look, Joanna, straight in here. Will it have an effect on contract renewals like it did with Leon and Chelsea? I mean, is that something that you know? I don't really know how she means. I'm guessing you know a bit more about that than me.
Yeah, again, that'll probably depend on the club in terms of how soon they want to delve into contract situations, which probably most clubs you'd look at probably in the new year. They start really looking ahead, and it's a tough one. That I mean, I can't really relate to my experience with Chef because all our players are on sort of 1 year rolling contracts and things like that, and they all just get done in the summer. So obviously United is a bit different in terms of the profile of the players that you've got. I mean, it can work both ways because if a new owner comes in and they're suddenly going to start pumping money into the women's teams, and you don't know, like it can go either way. They can come in and suddenly go, okay, we're going to make Man United the new Leon. Do you know what I mean? And put millions of pounds in. They could come in and say, "Oh, we're not interested." So I think as well, players and agents will be looking at that. So I wouldn't look at it necessarily as a negative in terms of, oh, this is going to stall, contract progress and allow other clubs to come and take an Ona Badger or a Alessia Russo or whoever. Because I'm sure the players and their agents will be looking at it going, well, hang on a minute, if they do get taken over before the end of the season, is it actually going to make Man United an even more interesting place to be than it is if there is going to be more investment in the women? So everyone's really stuck now. Like, even Mark and Martin and the staff, they probably won't know really what's going on and how it's going to play out long term in terms of the impact on the women's team because you don't, And again, I relate to Chef. People speculate, oh, what's it going to mean for us? Will we go full time? Will it be? You don't know because you don't know who's buying you. You've got no idea what the interest's going to be like. So yeah, it's a hard one to answer. It's really speculative at the minute. Again, in terms of what stage it's on, who's actually buying them. You don't know. Is it Qatar? Is it Saudi Arabia? Is it more Americans? You've no idea. So, yeah, I think contract-wise, I wouldn't worry too much because it can work both ways in terms of, yes, maybe it will stall negotiations depending on what's happening with the money, but I'm sure the players and the agents will also be looking and going, well, let's wait it out and see what United look like when they come out
after. I think, well, a lot of people are talking first quarter, so that's what, April minimum. So, towards the end of the season, we might be in the Champions League for the women. I feel like all this, money, all that is going to have a bigger impact maybe than the money. And I just feel like the money is there if they want to sign. It's just, is the ambition, is the players. And then obviously, like you said, if they're going to pump in and invest, like Lanzel's saying, put the money down and challenge, then, that could change it all. We could be second, finish second, be in an FA Cup final. This is what I think will be needed, like finish second, challenging, be in an FA Cup final or have won it, and then, like you say, the money's there, and then they're going to put down and be like, go and get a big statement signing. Because for me, and me and Lanzel speak about it a lot, I understand where you're coming from. They could say they just don't care, but I think Man United, the brand is so big. I feel like when we weren't in women's football, everyone was looking. So I feel like if it's a Saudi, if it's a Dubai, especially, they're going to have to come in and show because I think everyone's going to be looking. So I feel like the women's are there. Russo is a statement poster girl, so they're going to have to throw her money at Honor and Leslie because it's what everyone's sort of looking at as a whole.
I don't disagree with that. Like, I think no owners now, especially people said it last year with Chelsea. Because Roman Abramovich was a massive backer and a massive supporter of the women's team, and people went, "Well, what's going to happen?" And obviously Todd Bowley's come in and nothing's changed. Do you know what I mean? Because the money that's really being put in by these top clubs is nothing. It's not going to bankrupt them whatever they put into their women's team. So, but you're right. That no one has got. All you can do from coming in, taking over a club, and not showing an interest in your women's team is just score a massive PR own goal. If an owner comes in and says, "I'm not bothered about Man United women, and we're not going to invest," and like you say, the pressure that would be put on from the outside in terms of probably the fan backlash, the media it's not worth it. It's not worth it for the PR. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it probably would hopefully only benefit things. The other thing I'd probably say is, and it's not a blanket thing across all clubs, I'm not going to profess to know the ins and outs of everyone's budgets, but a lot of club budgets are sort of preset before the season. Like, clubs will sit down, they'll set their budgets for the whole year, and that generally, things that are sort of pre-agreed and pre-put in place probably won't change no matter what happens. So, again, I can't see it having a huge impact on January. I think you're more looking at the summer in terms of, at what stage it actually goes through. And obviously, like you say, where United are at in terms of, the league table, Champions League and the FA Cup, etc.
Champions League or bust. That's what I've been told from various people, especially for Leslie. So let's see how that goes. Someone's saying that I'm going to come to the rumours. Like, listen, guys, stay with me because there's big news that me and Rich both heard. So yeah, stick with us. Following on from Beth England, she would want to be our first choice striker. Would United not have gone all out if it's evidence that Russo isn't signing a contract? So we'll see what Elizabeth's saying here. Elizabeth's saying Man United would have paid that money if Russo is definitely saying she's not signing. Do you think that's right, that she should be thinking along those lines? I still think it's Champions League or bust, but I mean, what do you think?
I think every player wants to play at the top level. Like, every player wants to play Champions League. Is it as simple as saying Champions League or bust? I don't know. Even if you
I think Rich has dropped out. Let's wait and see if Rich comes back in. I can remove him. But I don't know if he's going to come back in or if it's me that's frozen. Lost Rich, frozen Rich. Yeah, okay, thank you. Hopefully you can still all hear me, so say that you can hear me if you can. But here, Femfoot, I know who you are. Listen, what I've heard, the big rumours, Jade Riviera from Canada. That is a name that I definitely think that we are in for. I think obviously we said with Graham last week, we said Hannah Wojcik, and I think Jade's another one that is going to come in. I think Mark has talked about fullbacks and how he wants fullbacks. So I think that's one that is going to come in. I think no matter what happens with Honor, she is the best fullback in the world for me. And I agree with what we need to lock her up. I agree. But I think definitely Jade is one with Hannah. And I feel like we were just talking then about people, the money. And Hannah, we know that she's got an extra year on a deal. So for me, she has to play we have to pay for her. And Rich is there talking about 100k. Will they pay it? And then overall it's 200k. But like we're saying, we don't know how far down the line this sale is. So I don't know actually if she's right or left-footed. I don't know that. Rich is back in the game, so let's see if he's got a better stream and he can answer this question. Rich, we forgot about Beth England now. We're on Riviera. So is she right or left-footed? Do you know who I mean with Jade Riviera?
Yeah, she can. I think she plays both. She can play right back. She can play left back. From bits I've seen of her, and it's limited. I think she's predominantly right-footed, but Canada's interesting in that both of them, Riviere and Ashley Lawrence, they can both play both sides. So I remember watching them once, and Lawrence played left and Riviere played right, and then the next game Lawrence played right and Riviere played left. So yeah, I think she's quite interchangeable in terms of she can play both. But from when I've watched her, she seems to be more right-footed than left-footed. But I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched a humongous amount because obviously she's in college, but obviously saw a bit of a live last year at the Arnold Clark Cup. Sorry, this year still at the Arnold Clark Cup, and obviously then she got injured. But yeah, I think it's pretty interchangeable in terms of she can play both sides. But in terms of what foot she is, she seems to be more right-footed than left from what I've seen of her.
I mean, do you think that she would be impacted by the whole? I know it's one that we're going to come on to, and you said that she would be, but this whole Brexit work permit, or do you think if United did want her, she could come in? I mean, people are saying she's rehabbing now. I mean, what do you think? What stage do you think she's at? Do you think she's more of a player ready now more than a Hannah Vajek? Because I was saying to the people when you cut off, Hannah Vajek is one that we'll have to pay for. And like you say, how much would they take? How much would they want? How much money have we got to spend? Even if it's 300k, have we got that much? Like you're saying about the sale and stuff. We don't know how far along it is. So who do you think, I suppose, about Jade Riviera and Hannah Vajek? Who do you reckon they would be more interested in? Or I know we're not saying for definite, but just speculation. Or do you think both, either?
It's hard to pinpoint because the thing with football clubs is now, and especially the top clubs, realistically, they're probably watching every top young player in the world. Like, I'm sure every top European club will be watching Riviere. I'm sure every top European club will be watching Hannah. Because why wouldn't you? And some of the Dutch players that I've seen you mention on social media, teams will be watching every under 21 game, under 20 World Cups, under 17 World Cups, and and seeing what they can do because these are the players that are going to set you up for the next 10 years if you're lucky. So yeah, I'd be surprised if United aren't monitoring someone like Riviere. I'd be surprised if they're not monitoring someone like Hannah because they're top young players. But I'd be surprised if Chelsea aren't, if Arsenal aren't, if City aren't, if PSG and Lyon aren't. So obviously the one disadvantage the English clubs have is the visa ruling that came in last season. Jade probably would qualify, I think, based on the amount of games she's played for Canada. If you've played a certain amount of games for a team in the top 10 of the rankings, you get an automatic pass. So, I know she got a knock, but she still played a lot of games for Canada last year. So you'd have to do the maths in terms of what percentage she played of the games that she was available for. But I think she'd be okay. I saw you mention the US girl on social media earlier. I think
Michelle Cooper, under 20 USA captain, played in the under 20 World Cup. That's another player that I know is looking to go pro. Go on.
I think she'd be a straight no in terms of she has not played senior football. She's not obviously playing club football. So from what I gather, it's pretty impossible to bring a college player over to England unless A, they're English, or B, they're in senior football, like Jade is, obviously like Jessie Fleming. I mean, Jessie Fleming came over before the ruling came in, but like even now, Jessie Fleming would qualify in terms of she'd been a regular for Canada for some time. So, yeah, look, someone like Hannah, I'm sure United are looking, but I'm sure Chelsea are, and I'm sure Arsenal, I'm sure every top European club is looking because they do. They have data on absolutely everybody, and as much as you'd love as a football club to be able to go out and say, okay, we're just going to sign her, there's probably 3, 4, 5 other top clubs all around England and around Europe that want to do the same thing. And that's, as we discussed with Stina Blackstenius last year, that's where the finances come in, because, she was close to United at one point last year, and then Arsenal came in with a much bigger offer and Champions League football and whatnot, and she went to Arsenal. So, that comes back to...
This is where, now, Rich, I want to talk about, okay, Stina went to Arsenal. Arsenal fans aren't too impressed, and I'll bring it back to Dabinia and everything, but I just want to talk about the young ones, because we look at Maya, we look at Grace, even Carrie Jones. You can probably say people are looking at her if you're talking about under 20s or young players. These are 3 young players. Maya, did I say Maya was the first one? Yeah, Maya, Grace, Carrie. These are 3 young players, and I mean, Maya, we know that we were in for, it was us, Chelsea, City, Spurs, probably people from around Europe were looking at Maya. She obviously chose us. Grace chose us. Carrie, she came through our devs reserves, but not saying that she didn't have probably a lot of people looking at her since she made her debut for Wales at 16, 14, whatever, and obviously, I've said on this show, and I've said, I think Grace is going on loan, Carrie's on loan. I think kids come to Man United, say a Jade, you'd come to Man United because your option is there to start straight away. If you look at Arsenal, if you look at Chelsea, maybe City, I don't know, but Maya came to United because she knew she would get in, and she would be the pretty much first choice. And Jade, I think, would come into Man United and would take Anna's spot. If Anna went, she would take Anna's spot. And someone like Grace and Carrie, though, I feel like they're just there. Like, for example, Rambo, she's Man United through and through. I feel like she's there. She needs to play. I'm not saying play her over Mary, but when do you think that these kids like Grace comes in, she's not played? I know you've got information that you can tell the people, but a lot of people are upset because Man United is about young kids. Maya walking in, bang. Grace, we saw her in Paris. She's done so well. You see her in that under-20 team doing so well, and you want her to play. And this is where I think, I don't know, obviously Mark's doing his job, but people become frustrated because we signed 37-year-old players, and you got a young 20-year-old who's sort of busting, ready to smash it up. So United, I think, have the advantage in that, yeah, we might not get Stina, but these little kids will come and think, that's my spot there, boom. But then he's bringing in your Paris, your Williams, your Jade Moore, your Stanley, your this, over these little kids. So where do you think the line is? What do you think it is? Do you think it has to be a Jade and Maya, someone who's world-class already, for them to get a chance?
No, I think it depends on each specific situation. Look, realistically, the more experienced players are probably more ready to come in and perform straight away, than the younger ones, particularly the ones that are stepping up a level. Like most young players, when you end up going to Man United, you're going up a level, and that's not to say Grace was at a low level or Maya was at a low level, even though they were playing in the WSL, but they've stepped up, to Man United. So they haven't come down from a bigger team that's let them go. And I think Maya's situation is very different to Grace. I think Maya was signed, obviously because she's an outstanding talent, and we all know that, but I think it was a position United were really, really keen to recruit in terms of that sort of right side of defence, right back or right centre back, wherever she's needed. I think with Grace, it wasn't necessarily a position they needed to recruit in terms of, obviously you have Ella Toon in that number 10 position, you have Katie Zellum can play further forward, you have Bilbao Risa that can play further forward, and you've got your myriad of forward players that can drop into various positions, whether that's Williams, Garcia, Leon, etc. So I think Grace was signed because they know how good she's going to be. She's been at Everton, she's been around the England youth teams. Martin obviously knows her very well from his time at Everton, and I think it's just circumstance has been difficult. She had the injury when she first signed, and the team hits the ground running. The team was sort of very set in stone, and she's had illness, and now she's obviously back. And from what I gather, the loan has kind of been talked about for some time now, to the point of they didn't want to start playing her and risk aggravating what she did have in terms of the injury from the summer, but also I think a big thing was they didn't want to cup tie her. In terms of these last few Conti Cup games, including against us, last time out, I thought we might have seen her against us when we turned up. But obviously, if she's going to a team that's still in the Conti Cup, they're going to want her involved. They're going to want her involved and getting a taste of big knockout games after Christmas. So that's my understanding of it. She's still a kid, and you've got to be patient with them, And anybody that read my interview with Martin a few months ago, we went really in depth on the youth system and how sort of careful they are with them in terms of exposing them, and obviously Kira and Alicia got that against us last week, so that's the sort of first step for them. But I think a loan's good. I think a loan will do Grace. Loaning out's not saying we don't want this player. Loaning out is saying, you're a kid, we value you highly, and we see you being the future of Manchester United for the next 10 years. But it's about 10 years. It's not about just this season. If she can go out and develop and play regular football, you look at Jess Park's a great example. I was surprised when Man City loaned her out because she's been around their first team for the last year or two. But it's been a masterstroke because she's been outstanding for Everton, and she's got herself in the England squad, and she's playing well. She people are talking about her, and she'll go back to Man City in the summer in a miles better place than she would have done without the loan. And I'm sure United are hoping the same for Grace, because they know how good she is. So I get fans get frustrated and they want to see these players straight away, but United are winning at the minute. That's the thing. There's no real need to change what's happening, even in the big games. Obviously, going to Arsenal and winning, and Man City, maybe they could have killed it off, but it was probably a better point for United than it was for City in terms of where you are in the league and the fact it was away from home. So, for someone like Grace, she's not just going to waltz back in and take Ella Toon's spot in the team. So, she needs to go and play and develop. I think it's a really, similar to Emily Ramsey, I think it's a really good opportunity for her.
Well, it's like, T's just come in here. Hi, T. Mark hasn't figured out. And this is the one, Abiro, not Brian. I hope I've said your name right, but it's that he says this, and it doesn't fill you with confidence that he did say that. I don't know if you've seen the quotes, but he sort of said, Grace isn't ready for this level. This was against Everton. And we're still figuring out where we need to play her. And I mean, when I heard Grace was signing, my instant reaction was, why we're signing Grace when we got Carrie Jones? So forward kind of thing. For me, I see Carrie as a 10 as well. We can play all across that 3. And like I said, a bit deep in the 10. And then obviously they signed Grace, and it was said to me explicitly, Grace is a midfielder, Carrie is a striker, so why are you worried? And then obviously he's come out and says, well, we're thinking about where to play her. It does sort of, I don't know, that's where I think he shoots himself in the foot, Mark, by saying silly things like that, because like I said, it was explained to me, Carrie's a 9, Grace is a 10, why are you worried? And then he says, oh, well, we don't know, actually. And it's sort of a bit... And I think it is because England played Grace further forward. So, I mean, when you... What do you think when he does come out with comments? Because there are sometimes he says some things, Mark Skinner, and you think, what's going on here?
I sort of admire his honesty in a way. He doesn't, to be fair, kind of hold back. Like, I wasn't on the interview when he was talking about Grace, so I haven't heard it in context. Like, I asked him earlier in the year about Katie Zellum and her importance, and because fans were talking about that a lot at the time, and he gave a really open, honest answer. And at the start of the season, again, I was on his press conference when he was asked about Vilda and why she's not playing, and to be fair, again, he didn't shy away from it. He opened up about the things that she needed to work on. And it's a weird one in a way, like, because as a journalist, you kind of want them to be as open as possible, but you also understand why they're not. You also understand why they don't want to put certain things out there. So at the end of the day, like if he's comfortable with his decisions, and they have a lot. Man United have always had a long term plan as a club, men and women, and like I said with Grace, it's not about this season. It's about the next 5-10 years, and Meyer, I think, was in a better place to go and slot straight in terms of, like I said, that was a position United needed to recruit in. With Grace, like you said, it probably wasn't. But I think it was just an opportunity that was too good to turn down. A kid that was playing just down the road, that's a really exceptional talent, that has, like I said, worked with one of the coaches before, and they rate her highly. They really do. And I think she'll have a big future there. I really do, and it's one of them. Sometimes it just takes time, and Lauren James, I guess, is a good example. Slightly different situation in terms of she'd had a lot of first team football with United and even with Arsenal, but Chelsea said, we're going to take our time, and we're not just going to rush her and throw her in, and they're probably reaping the rewards of that now in terms of the impact that she's having, and in big games as well, like last week against PSG. So I know fans want to see young players. I know it's exciting to see young players come through, but you do have to be, unless they're a really ridiculous talent, that can just walk into the first team and dominate everybody. I always think taking the sort of more cautious approach, if you've got the quality, and United are not lacking in that area at the minute. Ella Toon, I think, has come right back into really good form. I think she started the season a little bit slowly, but she's really picked up. If she's seen as a forward, then Alessia's in good form. I think I'd personally, I guess I've always seen Grace as a 10 because I've seen her more at club football when she was with Everton. But like you say, she's played further forward with England, and it's not a bad thing to have, really. If you can be a 9 or a 10 in equal fashion, then you're going to get double the opportunities to impress. So no, I think alone is the best thing for her. I really do, and I'll be interested to see where she goes. I know you said Brighton. I don't know. But I think, whether it's Brighton or West Ham or Tottenham, I think she'll play. And I think
it's down south. That's all I know. It's down south. It doesn't look like Tottenham now. And the ones that are left are Charlton, which for me I would like to see in the WSL club. Charlton, Brighton, West Ham, and like you said, I can't see it being Spurs now. With
she's. I mean, I used to beg Sheffield United to sign Grace on loan when about 2-3 years ago when she was sort of breaking through. Even then, we were sort of, always told no, she's better than the Championship and things like that. I think now she's certainly, if she went to a Charlton or a London City or something like that, fair play to them if they pull that off. But yeah, she's better than the Championship for me. And she needs to play WSL. That's where her future's going to be. So if they can find her a team where she's going to go and play, then it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, Niall, thank you, mate. Drop a like on, drop and go and follow Niall. But yeah, big up. R.I.P. Pele. Obviously, we heard about it just before we came on, and big up respect and see, obviously the football world this morning. I was going to say it as soon as I came on, but I had different questions. But we send our respects. You want to say anything about it, Rich? Good.
Yeah, he's a legend, isn't he? And obviously we've seen the last week or two he's been ill, and yeah, it's sad. With Maradona as well, only a few years ago, and yeah, another legend, and hopefully his family have got peace now, because obviously I think he's been ill for a while. So yeah, it's another sad loss.
Yeah. Here's something that me and Rich always argue about.
It could be anything. That could be anything now.
But it's this one. The fact that we are winning games shouldn't be used to ignore the issues. I've seen a lot of people using it whenever there's a concern around the United squad. And I feel like the concern is the rotation. I mean, T saying it here. What if Tooney gets burnt out? Got no backup. He's not rotating. I saw someone say on Twitter to me today, yeah, she's a good player about Jade, but what's he called? Skinner makes his subs, 3 same predictable subs every weekend. You know who's coming off, you know who's coming on, and it's good to see Tooney pick up, but she wasn't on form at the start, but he still played her. you know, what do you think? I mean, even Lanzell, a separate one. Clinton's marked signing, but he doesn't know his best position. Concerning. And I do feel this. I do feel like people will raise issues about Mark, and it will get shut down. And they're valid issues, you know. What about burnout? Because I mean, we talked to just then about Vilda, and Vilda, I know, is attracting interest from around everywhere. I know Villa are very, 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 very interested in Vilda, you know, and there's talk that we might be looking to move her on, and you wonder if we're going to move a Vilda on, who is out there that is of that level, and like you say, what if anything? What if there's an injury? What if there's this? And a lot of Vilda isn't even really getting a look in, and you know, loaning out Grace. Fair enough, she needs the minutes. I agree with a loan for Grace. It's what I want. I want to see her playing week in, week out in the WSL. But you know, we're talking about your Vildas, your Leons, you know, Jade Moore. These are three people that have heard, that people are hearing wanting to move. You know, Vilda to come out in the press and say, "I need to play," and like we say, all you see is the same 3 substitutions, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It's, you know, like you say, it's perplexing for fans. Fans don't know what to do, what to say, and you know, all they can say is change. But then, you know, someone like Rich will come in and say, "You're wrong. You're winning." Yeah, you're winning for now. We're always thinking 10 steps down the line. You know, I'm not bothered if they win 5-0 at Old Trafford. It doesn't bother me. I'm thinking Champions League in May. Who's going to be playing? Is it still going to be the same 3 in the midfield? Zellum, Toon, because you know, there's going to be points where you're going to have to change it up. Are we ready?
I mean, I'd never say anyone's wrong. You know, everyone can have their opinion, and people do have their opinion. My view on it, I always find it interesting in a way to watch how a team sort of develops, and seen a lot of comment. You know, my job is to not to speculate, is to work out. I say it all the time now, and it's not just about Mark and Martin. It's about any manager at any club, any national team. There's a reason for everything they do. They don't just do things for no reason. They do things to win football matches. That's their job. It's what they live and die by, you know. And if they don't, especially at Man United, you guys are on the back more than anybody. So, you know, I look at it and go, okay, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Like people say, he's signed players, he's not playing them. The starting 11 is obviously very similar to last season, with probably Maya being the one that has stepped in, and but that doesn't like hugely shock me. Like they were very open, that they wanted depth, they wanted more options off the bench to change things, and I think as well, you know, you saw as well as anyone last year that it takes time to get used to Mark's way of playing, and it did take that time last season, and I think those players now, Elatoon and Alessia Russo and, you know, Leah Galton, Hector Lad, Katie Zellum, etc. I think they've got it now. I think they've got it now. I think you're seeing that in performances. I think you're seeing it in results. Again, like I said, particularly those big games, apart from Chelsea. So it doesn't shock me that he's kind of stuck with that, because they're the ones that now have grasped that way of playing. And, you know, you can throw Lucia Garcia straight in from the start, or Adriana Leon, or Grace Clinton, or Tunkara, and, you know, they might not. And then you might have results that dip a little bit like you did at the start of last season, which they can't really afford. You know, they can't afford, like you said, that the expectation now to try and get the Champions League, and those are the sort of impact players that you bring off the bench. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a lack of rotation in terms of, again, you don't, you know, the rotation has been in the cups. You know, the league has been very similar, and, you know, there's not many cup games. You know, you might have a little FA Cup run after Christmas. Beyond that, you know, it's a pretty open run to the end of the season where players probably aren't going to burn out too much. In terms of should subs be made sooner, etc., possibly, but that's my opinion. You know, I don't know what their plan is every game, and the Man City one was the Arsenal and Man City games were both sort of quite interesting to watch in terms of Arsenal. They did make sort of those changes, and Lucia Garcia came on, Martha Thomas came on, and but they're the perils of it, you know, because players come on fresh, and you know, they're maybe not quite switched on to the game, and I think it was about 2 minutes after Garcia came on, she loses Wienrother for the second goal, and Arsenal are ahead. And that's not to criticise her. That's just an example of sometimes changes just disrupt things a little bit. And obviously, if you're behind, you've got to throw players on. Then it's understandable. And probably Martha came on in that game and had a pretty decent impact, to be fair. And then Man City, it was a bit sort of, I got it. Like I was watching, I only saw the last sort of 20, 25 minutes of the game, and it was it was quite frantic. It was a little bit end to end, and I don't think either team were managing it massively well. Like City were having chances, United were having chances, and I probably looked at that from a point of view of, I think United had more to lose from that game than City. If they'd conceded, I think a point was a really good result. And I think again, there's that reluctance in certain situations to change it because it's going okay, it's working. Let's 5-10 minutes to go. Let's manage the game and take the point. And I think that was a really good point for United. So subs are interesting in terms of they can change games as well, but they can disrupt games. And like I said, I'm not going to profess to know every decision, the reasoning behind everything Mark and Martin do. He's not the only manager in world football to make predictable subs. Serena Wiegman won a European Championship off of it in the summer, making pretty much the same subs at the same time every single game, and opposition teams knew what was coming, but they couldn't stop it. So
I wouldn't compare Serena and Mark. I just
no, but
the
decisions in terms of subs and the structure behind it, were very similar. And every squad has issues, and Man United is still growing and still have areas where they can improve. But the thing I said when we came on in the summer and did the preview and talked about whether United would get Champions League, and I was pretty honest in saying that I didn't think they would. As my view changed, perhaps a little bit in terms of they're in a better position than I thought they would be in terms of the results in the big games. I didn't think they'd go to the Emirates and win, especially obviously when you're 2-1 down with 5 minutes to go as well. But that they are playing well. Not every game. There's been some games where they're a little bit below par, but that's football. You can't be 100% every game. Chelsea are not 100% every game. They had a real wobble against Reading in their last league game.
Well, I just want to touch on that, Rich. Sorry, I just want to touch. Because someone was saying to me, this is what I'm saying. She can drop Sam Kerr, she can drop this, she can drop that. And Mark talks a lot about trust, but she trusts her players, I feel, more than Mark trusts his. He says he trusts Vilda, he says he trusts this. But if he did, games like Villa, or I know that was at Old Trafford, so obviously he's going to play his first team. But Leicester and all these kind of teams. No disrespect, Brighton. You would see more changes, and you would see a better, rotation in those games.
Yeah, but the thing I throw back at you now is why risk it? Everyone's fit, no one's injured at the minute, which is why he's not having to change the 11. If they're all fit and they're fresh and it's working and they're winning games, why would you change it? For the sake of yeah, Chelsea. For me, Chelsea's a bit of a different example. Like United have got better depth than they had last season, 100%. Your second team played against us last week in the cup, and we're turning up, and there's Lucia Garcia, Adriana Leon, Tunkara, Thoris Dottir, Staniforth, Bo Risa, like all these established internationals from all sorts of different countries, and that's your B team essentially. So, that's light years ahead of what you had in terms of depth 12 months ago when you didn't have the options to change games. And again, that was something Martin was pretty honest about in our interview when he said last season we were one-dimensional in terms of what we had because we didn't have the options to change games. So, yeah, you can rotate, but what's the point of rotating for the sake of it and risking dropping points? Well, changing a winning team and you put 4 or 5 different players in and then suddenly you draw 1-1 with a Brighton or a West Ham, or people are going to say, well, why have they done that? We were winning games. So in a certain way, managers at all levels can't do right for doing wrong. But I look at United at the minute and I go, that starting 11, whatever people think of the personnel, it is working. You know, you can see that you can see in the patterns of play that they're getting what Mark and Martin want them to do, and they're winning games. You know, they're winning games, and that's what you want at the end of the day. Like, we can sit here all day long, now, all through this season, and do podcasts and talk about, you know, should kids be playing? Should there be more rotation? Who are they going to sign? Like you said, in reality, it'll be all down to where you are at the end of the season. And I've said it before, you live and die by your decisions as a manager. And whatever the ifs and buts, if we're sat here in May and Man United have got in the top three, no one's going to look back and say, well, he should have rotated, or, you know, he should have played the kids, or we should have signed this player.
You know what? I think we will.
Well, to be fair,
because
you
we're
probably will,
winning
but
now and we're still saying it. So I think we will.
you might allow yourself to have
We'll
one
all
day.
be saying it. Everyone on this podcast will be saying it.
You might.
No, we never have one day.
I'll
It's
let
Man
you have
United.
one day. I'll let you have one day where you're happy at the end of the season if you get in the top three. We'll allow it.
We're Man United. We're never happy.
Then
We're never happy unless we're winning. We're Man United. Yeah.
You're winning.
Here's something for you, Rich. Bum.
Go on.
No. Rumours. What have you heard? People, they don't care anymore. They've had too much chatting.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously the window opens in a couple of days, and yeah, it's been busy already. Obviously, like, a lot of the rumours are around the top clubs, which again is not a huge surprise given that's kind of the demand. In terms of United, like, I know it's going to sound really boring, but, you know, I say it every window that they're so good at keeping things quiet, at not leaking things. I do think they'll be active. That's mainly from what I heard in the summer, to be fair, about potential plans moving forward, and little things Mark has said, and obviously what Martin said when I interviewed him about, you know, January and planning. But January is a weird window. It always is. Like, it is in the men's game, probably for different reasons, but it's a weird one in the women's game because you're probably not going to get big players from France, Germany, Spain, etc., because nobody really wants to sell mid-season. Like, I saw some fans, people were asking, are Chelsea going to go back for Grace Gayoro now because they've got more money from the Beth England deal? But why are PSG going to sell? You know, that they're one of the richest clubs in the world. They're top of the league at the moment with the women. They're in the Champions League quarterfinals. They're not going to sell a key player midway through a season. So you almost kind of, I mean, like I said, you're restricted first and foremost by the visa rulings when we start talking about young players like Cooper or, you know, Demorne or Caicedo and people like that. That's not happening in terms of any WSL clubs, really. So, you know, a lot of the rumours come from Scandinavia because they're the leagues that have now finished and players are out of contract. Similar with, obviously, NWSL. You've seen Gemma Bonner come back and sign for Liverpool. So, yeah, it's a tough window to do business in. Like, obviously, Arsenal are they're generally quite busy in January, and they're going to be again with probably at least 3 going in. Chelsea, I've heard little bits that maybe they're looking at younger players, looking to the future. I don't think they're going to do anything massive. I don't see like a big superstar first team signing. Man City, it's been very quiet in terms of rumours. United, it has been quiet, but I always think with United that means they're doing something because they're very good at keeping it quiet. And again, I remember coming on here in the summer and everyone was panicking, saying, where's the signings? And then they dropped like 6 signings in about 2 weeks. So I don't think they'll do 6, obviously, in January, but I'd be surprised if the money's there, like we talked about earlier, and the targets lined up, that there probably won't be, you know, I'd expect 1 or 2. With, like you say, maybe Grace going on loan. So yeah, it's quietish still at the moment. Like, obviously, there's been a lot of rumours, again, particularly around Arsenal. I think once everyone's sort of back in next week, because there's a lot of people actually still off. People are not back in offices and things until after the new year. So when the window opens early next week, I think you'll start seeing things ramp up a little bit because you only have a month. You know, it's not like the summer. You get until the end of January, and that's you done for the season. So I think next week it will start getting a little bit busier.
Yeah, and I think last January we saw with United, it went right down to the wire, getting Brony over the line, getting. I think Thingy was done a bit earlier, but getting those two or three that Diane was done a bit earlier, but I think getting them over the line, I think with United it is going to come down to lastminute.com. I think it's just the way it is with United. And I think, if one doesn't come off, they'll be looking at our next one. They've probably, like Hannah is one that I think they've been working since summer. So if that one doesn't come off for us, we'll try for another one. And we know that he wants fullbacks. And Jade and Hannah, for me, are the two top ones. Will he settle for a lesser one? I don't know anymore. I mean, like, people are saying Dabinia, and I just want to pull it back to the very first comment that someone left at 1 a.m. You think I'm mad for it? These people are mad for it, Rich. Madder than me. Jordan Nobbs and Dabinia to Man United. I know myself personally, I do not want Jordan Nobbs at Man United. Whether she takes that as offence, good for her. But I feel like Man United have better players than Jordan Nobbs. I'd rather see, I know you were talking about Barry and all this, but I'd rather see Barry and all that because I just think that they would be better. I know it's different positions, but I'd rather see a Rebecca May. I'd rather see Ella Kinzet than a Jordan Nobbs. To be honest, I think she's a great player in the past. I feel like Man United should be moving away from them type of players. Arsenal kind of, I know it sounds harsh, but Arsenal reject players. But Dabinia, that is a one. That is a one that for me at Man United, it sets a precedent. It sets a precedent that these Stina kind of type players, these top players, we're coming for them. We're going for them. She's made it clear. Like I said, I know we talked about it at the start, and I know you've talked about Arsenal and all them, and I know a lot of the rumours are for Arsenal, but a lot of the rumours for Maya were City. And I know Graham said he said one thing about United, but whereas he said 3 or 4 about Arsenal. What do you think, Dabinia, Man United? Is there a chance? Are they interested?
Again, interested is it's a pointless term to use. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they would be, because why would you not be interested in Dabinia? But the rumours around, most of the people you speak to around the league think she's going to Arsenal. Whether that's just based on the hearsay of what other people are saying, I don't know. Arsenal are being linked with a lot of forwards, and obviously it's very evident that that's a position they're going to strengthen in, because obviously Viviana Miedemar's out long term, Beth Mead's out long term, so Dabinia is going to waltz straight in there and play, and I'm sure she probably would at Man United as well, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, people think she's going to Arsenal. Whether that's done or not, who knows? I mean, the beauty of the transfer window is that so many things can change. Like I said, we sat here last year, and one of the most reliable transfer writers in the sport was writing about Stina going to Man United. A week later, she went to Arsenal. So things do change very, very quickly. So I'm not going to sit here and say we won't see Dabinia in a different shirt, but the suggestions are that she will end up at Arsenal. In terms of Jordan's an interest. Like, I'm a massive fan of her. I really am. I think at her peak, she was a fabulous player. Whether she still has that level, who knows? But it's an interesting one, because I feel like she needs to go and play somewhere, whether that's a loan or a permanent move. But Arsenal are kind of in a tricky spot in terms of, obviously you have the homegrown quota, where if you max your limit of 25 players in your squad, you have to have 8 homegrown players. I think Arsenal have 21 players registered at the minute, which means you have to have 7, I believe, if I've got my percentages right. And they have 7. They only have 7. Arsenal have a very foreign-based squad. There's not a huge amount of homegrown players in there. And obviously all the rumours about arrivals are foreign players, whether that's Palova, Dabinia, D'Angelo, obviously the goalkeeper. So, if they brought those 3 in, that puts them up to 24, and they're really close to that, threshold of then having to have 8 homegrown players. So I'd be surprised if they let one go, because there's no rumours of them bringing another one in. So if they let Jordan go and she's registered to someone else, unless I've read the rules wrong, they'd be down to 6. So I'm not sure they'd meet the quota unless they register, obviously, an academy player for the sake of it, which they could do. Who knows? But yeah, I think in terms of the homegrown situation, that might affect whether Jordan can leave or not, whether that was Man United or somebody else. So that's probably one to keep an eye on in terms of Arsenal and who they do and don't sign and register. And if I'm being honest, I don't think they're in a position to let midfielders go, to be honest. But they've not got a massive amount of depth in terms of the midfielders that play slightly deeper, which Jordan tends to do a little bit more these days. And yeah, I think their focus is around obviously the attackers at the moment. Pull over, obviously sound like it's as good as done. Dabinia, like I said, I've heard people around the league believe she's going to go to Arsenal. Obviously saw rumours this morning of Lacasse and Katharina Kuhl. I think Lacasse is probably more a backup in case Dabinia doesn't happen. Kuhl's obviously an interesting one, and again, that comes back to young players. Every top club in Europe will be watching her because she's a really good young talent. So, yeah, I think Arsenal, probably like most Januaries, Arsenal are going to be sort of the most interesting one to watch because they seem to be going about it quite big and quite early.
Yeah. When a City fan has to come on a Man United channel and laugh about Jordan Nobbs to Man United and pray for it, it's not someone you want. You just mentioned there Lacasse. And for me, Bluppy, if she's watching, if I said your name right, you know who you are. She mentioned it and she said, like you say, if Dabinia was so done, they wouldn't be looking at Lacasse. So for me, that's a little spanner. That's a little glimmer. That's a little light for me as a Man United fan. I think, well, is my source right that said it was done 2-3 weeks ago and she told Arsenal no and she's saying yes to United? Is like you're saying, Lacasse is that Dabinia alternative. So why are they looking at both? It don't make sense. Why they're briefing that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you said, you just said it, haven't you, really? But it's an interesting one, isn't it, Rich? It's an interesting one.
People brief things for all kinds of reasons, Nat. Like that's the chaos of the transfer window, and that as a journalist is what you've kind of got to cut through. We saw it with obviously Van Havermaet at Reading, and there was nothing in that in the end, but it probably benefited the agency to have her name out there linked with a club like Man United. So, and that's not me disputing Amanda's sources. I know Amanda well, and she's great and got really good sources up in Scandinavia. So, with Kuhl particularly. Look, you are going to see a million transfer rumours this month in the men's game, in the women's game. 95% of them are not going to happen. That's just the reality of it. You'll see Man United men linked with player after player. I mean, look at Gakpo. Everyone seemed to think that was a nailed on, or Man United are going to sign him. He's worked with Ten Hag, etc. And then, boom, 5 minutes, Liverpool have signed him. So that's the transfer.
I tell you what, though, that's the transfer window, Rich, and I love it. I want more. I want more names linked to Man United. I want to know everyone. I want 100 names in one window because I love it. And then I can cut for my own bullshit. Because,
you'll end up with a lot of disappointment if you want 100.
I won't be disappointed because I'll cut through bullshit. I can cut through bullshit like that.
98 right? Of them won't sign for you.
Yeah, but then if I've got the 2 out there, at least I know they're out there and I know. You see, that's how we work. Give me 100 names because I can cut through all the bullshit. Talking less about that. Obviously, a big reason why you came on, and I want everyone to support it. Everyone who's watching, drop a like. Everyone who's watching, go and follow Rich because he's got big news. Tell them about it, Rich. Tell them what have you got down the pipeline, what's coming up for you. This is why you wanted to come on, really.
I don't want to say like I don't want to say it's like big, earth-shattering, changing news. No, so I'm gonna start my own sort of subscription. It won't all be subscription, like some of it will be free, but I'm going to start on my own women's football website essentially early next year. I want it to be a sort of dedicated home really for women's football content. You know, I mean, anybody that's followed me over the last 10 years knows the kind of things that I write about. That I'm interested in stories and profiles and interviews and features and, you know, not just the WSL, but around the world. And I just basically want to create a home for it where, you know, I see a lot of women's football fans, you know, quite often sort of criticize the media and say we don't take it seriously and we ask daft questions and we do this and we do that. And sort of everybody gets tarnished with the same brush a little bit for what one person does or another person does. So that's kind of social media. So, yeah, I just want to create a place where, you know, people can just go on and there's just women's football content. You know, they can go and read stories and interviews and features and, you know, match analysis or opinion pieces. And it's not going to be like a hub for fixture lists and results and league tables and things like that. You know, and there's still plans in the work of what it's specifically going to look like in terms of the content. I'm not going to run with it before I can walk. Like I'm not going to, you know, I'd love to take it around the world and you know go off to different countries and really go with inside clubs and you know national teams and use the contacts that I've got. But you know, realistically, I'm not going to do that straight away. I'd love to branch off and really make it a brand and have a podcast and have videos and you know have books and things like that. I've always wanted to write books about women's football, but they're sort of longer term plans depending on how it goes. And I guess ironically, it comes back to that sort of supply and demand thing again in terms of, you know, obviously the more people that do subscribe and do support it, you know, it's not about me running off and taking all the money and, you know, I want to put it back into the project and to the website and be able to create the best and most unique, insightful content from around the women's game for the fans. And, you know, so the more people that support it, the better. But it's a challenge to me because everybody that does support it, you know, they're waiting for what I'm gonna provide for them, you know, over the long term as well. I'd love to be able to give chances to young writers as well, and it not just be all about me because there's more people getting into the women's game as you know massive right now. You know, the amount of people that want to write about women's football. So there's a loose plan in place of what it's going to look like and what I want it to look like, but I also want it to. I just want it to be a hub. You know, I want it to be somewhere, like I say, where people can just click a link and there'll be some stuff on there for free. There'll be some stuff that you have to pay for because it always makes me laugh. Like I sent you the one the other day on on Molly Hudson's article where people say, "Why can't I read this for free?" And I'm like, well, you don't go and buy a newspaper for free. You don't go and fill your car up with petrol and then complain you have to pay for the petrol. So like, I don't know how people think we earn a living. Like, you know, I'm not going to charge for it, but like the stuff that takes months and months, and trust me, there are things that I work on as a journalist that take months and months of hard work. You know, you should earn money, but that's on me. You know, that's up to me to come up with content that is good enough, unique enough, interesting enough that people will pay for it. And like I said, a lot will be on there for free as well because I want people to have a place where they can go and read about women's football all around the world. So, and it's something I can control every day, you know, in terms of what goes out, what people are reading, what people are interested in. And yeah, it's a new challenge. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure what it's all going to look like just yet. But yeah, I'm looking forward to sort of doing. You know, I'll still be doing it. I'll still be doing our game, and I'll still be doing all the bits and bobs. That's not going to change. I'm still with Sheffield United. It's just taking on another project really, and sort of seeing where it goes.
What I will say, Natty B, Natty B, Natalie, whatever you want to call me, I'm becoming a freelance podcaster, and there's going to be some content that's coming out from me. So you know, obviously, go and support that. But you
Well,
know, if you have any podcasts,
we can be rivals.
no, you could come on. I could come on yours if you want to do a podcast. But
No,
listen,
I don't know that. Like, I'd love to have a podcast one day. I don't know the first thing about recording them, so
listen.
I will actually bow down to you now on the podcast topic.
Uh-huh. But listen, if you've got stuff, I feel like people want scout reports. Well, we've even shown today people want transfer news. For me, that is the thing that will always tick. That will always tick it over. I'm not saying, oh, you know, you have to be breaking news every day, but you know, if you know things, I think that information should be put out. And like you said, I know about the Grace thing. I know that she's definitely going, and I don't know for sure it's Brighton, but I'll put it out because it's something that people want to know about. I had Brighton fans in my DMs asking about it and things like that. Let me click on Grace Clinton. Let me find out about the Under-20 World Cup. Things like that. I think
Do you know
we're
what,
lacking
Nat?
in.
Like, I think I probably said it in the summer, and I've said it again. Like, and at this point in time, genuinely, I don't, because like the build up to Christmas was like ridiculous, because obviously I had the top 100 going on, which is usually done a few weeks before Christmas, but that went right up to Christmas Eve. So, and that like consumed my life for like probably 3 months, I would say. And then obviously like I had a few days off over Christmas, and then only really went back to work today, and started catching up on things, and going through emails and things like that, and dropping people messages that I've neglected over the Christmas period. So I genuinely don't know a lot at the moment. Like, what I do know, I've sort of said, and but generally, as the window goes on, you always know a little bit more than you can say. And I know, like you always say what you know, and say that you can't always, and I've always said that, if people come to you and it's off record and it's this and it's that, or it's off record till then, or it has to stay that way. Like, you can't betray people. If you betray sources in our game, you're not going to get far. Like, your contacts and the trust that you have with people is everything. And someone rang me up in 5 minutes and said, "Oh, Man United are signing so and so, but it's off record. Don't say anything.
I'll
I'll
still
let you know
find out.
more."
Don't worry, guys.
You might find out, but it won't be from me. So like, don't get me wrong. I get, like, we want to publish everything, of course we do, and we want to make it look like we know everything, and that we're the gospel. But the reality is that you can't. And I didn't know about Beth England because I've just not been working, and it was a great scoop from from Catherine. But yeah, everything we do now, like, I know fans and the media have like a weird relation. I don't think it's that bad in the women's game. Like, I think in the men's game, it's a lot worse, and it's sad in a way that I think it's creeping that way a little bit in an element in the women's game, because like the media, they're great people, and I love the fans. I really do. Like, the fans give us grief, and they want to know everything. But like, I love women's football fans because they're so passionate about their clubs, about their players, but the reality is we do everything. We don't write for us, anything. Catherine knows Beth England's going to Tottenham. She's not writing that story for her. She's writing it for the fans to read. So, it's. I think it's.
Well, she's writing it because she gets paid as well. She's writing it
is
because she
writing it
gets
'cause
paid.
she is
Let's,
writing it.
you talk.
But it's not for. It's
You're
not for her.
talking about. No, but you're talking as well though about people and subscribe and all these kind of things. And I think even me and you have had this conversation, haven't we, Rich? Athletic, we've got the best football, and then someone said, "Well, you haven't posted for 2 weeks during the World Cup, and the Manchester derby's next week. Man United beat thing. Where's the women's football content?" So all these times, these big kind of outlets, they come to you, they ask you for your money, and then actually when you pay it, you don't get what you're worth. And I feel like someone like Catherine, who has gone out and is breaking stories, and I know next week, come and check us out, she'll be on this thing, and I know she'll have some information for us. Not that Rich didn't, but she's in that, she's doing it. I know she's working on a big story. It's going to be a big exclusive. These are the things, and these are the things that, how can I say, when the things are breaking, like for example, Susie did the Hannah Hampton thing. Everyone was asking the question. She broke it, and the next minute everyone sent her abuse. And for me, it just doesn't make sense, because people are asking what's going on, and then she tells you and you don't like it. And I feel like that's the problem with the fans. It's people want the information, and I feel like normal people on this who watch this, who have watched this, who've ever watched anything that I do, they want it. But then you'll always have the 1% who will try and say, this isn't the way it is, and this is what, and this is fake news. And in the reality, it's not fake news. It's what you hear. And then when it actually does come out, I mean, I don't think Hannah's going to ever, come out and say, yes, I had an attitude problem. But, potentially if we don't see it at the World Cup, it's going to be clear as day that that Susie was right, and there's obviously more than what meets the eye in this whole kind of operation. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not denying that she had an operation. We saw it, but these are the stories that I think is needed to push the women's game forward. But I feel like we talked about it at the start. There's a set of fans that maybe don't want it because Hannah's their favourite and she took a picture with them at the Euros. That means nothing, mate. I used to know Hannah's dad and went to Scotland and did, but I still know the story. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like until we get past this kind of tunnel vision, everything's perfect in the women's game. And I feel like the media do set that, Rich. I'm not going to lie. And I feel like Sky, they'll set it, everything's perfect. Well, everything's not perfect because if it were perfect, we wouldn't have 57 ACL injuries and things like this. We need to move past, the media. They're just doing it for clickbait. No one's doing Beth England breaking British transfer for clickbait. They're doing it because it's true. I'm sorry. And the Hannah Hampton thing, all these kind of things. Those are the things that I think myself and other people would pay for. But, I'm not saying that your content's bad, Rich, but if it's just an interview that says everything's great, I don't really want to pay for that. Or, you know what I mean? I want to pay for something with substance.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. Like, everyone wants something a little bit different. If I created a website that was purely transfer rumours, you'd probably pay whatever it takes to get on it. But some people want other things, and that's why I want to make it sort of a hub, because I want it to be a bit of everything. I want it to be, I want there to be news and reaction to news, and I want there to be more sort of in-depth features and interviews, and then maybe sort of quicker, maybe slightly more, still serious but laid back stuff, because I appreciate not everyone wants to go on a website and spend 20 minutes reading an article. They might just want to spend 2 or 3 minutes. So look, you're right, Nat. Like, I use the Hampton story as an example. Like, I don't think we need to go back over it all, but Susie didn't write that just for a laugh. She didn't write it just to cause trouble. She wrote it because that's what she was told. And people think we pluck things out of thin air, but everything we write, everything we say is what people tell us. That's our job, and we have sources and we have contacts, and same with Catherine, like you say, she's not just plucked that out of thin air. Somebody's told her in confidence and from a good source that Beth England's going to Tottenham, and I'm sure she will go to Tottenham, and Catherine will be right. But yeah, I mean, I suppose that's part of the game becoming more exposed. The media are going to take more abuse for stories like that, where it's probably not going to be a huge amount of proof, and it's going to be one word against another, and it might never get proven, a story like that. So it is what it is. It's part of the job, I suppose, that you have to take it. I mean, like, I'm not sort of all holier than thou as a journalist. Like, we kind of criticize people for a living, so I can't sort of get on my high horse when people criticize us, because it's to and fro. And I had it all last week with the top 100. All it was just a whole week of people criticizing and people having a go, and you sort of just take it as it is. And it's not personal, to be fair. And as long as it never becomes personal, it doesn't bother me. Like, everyone's going to have an opinion, and I don't mind if people want to have a reasoned debate. If I write an opinion piece and someone says, I disagree with that, or, you disagree with me, Nat, on pretty much everything, and we'll debate it. And I don't mind doing that. I like debating things. That's what the job's all about. Everyone has an opinion. There'll be something happen, first weekend back, something will happen in the WSL, and everyone will have an opinion on it, and everyone's opinion will be different. And that's the beauty of what we did with the top 100. You're asking 119 people to have an individual opinion. So, you're going to get a bit of a, things sort of thrown together, and it becoming very subjective, and it's part of the job. But like you say, our job is to tell the truth, and whether people like that or not, that's kind of up to them at the end of the day. So yeah, we could talk all day about the job and where women's football is going and where the media is going, but yeah, it is what it is, I suppose.
For me, it's going in the way I've always wanted it, the way I said it would go. And it's like you say, isn't it? Level headed, keeping it real. People want to know it's going to come out. And unfortunately or fortunately, whatever side you sit on with that, for me, I think it's needed. But listen, guys, 29 people watching. We had 30, 40 people watching at times. I want to just say a big shout out. Like I said, Catherine's coming on next week, so you can grill her about a Beth England thing if you don't believe it. I'm sure she'll have more Man United news as it all keeps breaking, keeps coming out. Send Rich a like, a follow, drop a like on this video. Rich, where can people check you out? And if they want to subscribe, I'm sure you'll be posting it on your Twitter and your Instagram or whatever, however people can find you. Go on.
I'm on Twitter at RichJLaverty. Website isn't launched yet and won't be until probably the end of next month. So we've fully worked out what it's really going to look like and planned it all out and the content and everything. We've got some ideas of what we want it to look like early on. But again, the beauty of women's football is you can plan, and then the first week you launch, there'll be a big breaking news story and you've got to do something around that. So that's part of the game, isn't it? And part of the fun. So yeah, it's it'll be exciting, hopefully.
No worries. You can see my Twitter in the headline. You can see them going across the screen. Drop a like. I've appreciated everyone coming on. Put comments in and we'll look at them. And, you know, like I said, someone was commenting at 1 a.m. We talked about it. So hope it carries on the way it's going. Transfer season. See you next week, guys. Same time. Catherine on.